Call this meeting to order. Please stand. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as point of information, I'd just like to remind our community members that all the items to be discussed in public session may be found on our board docs the day before the meeting. Please contact the district clerk if you have any questions about any items on the agenda. We welcome anyone watching to follow along as we move through our meeting. As a reminder, the Board of Education policies may be found under the board docs under the policy tab. Okay, we'll start off with the approval of the minutes for the November 1st meeting. Is there any discussion on those?
Make a motion to approve them?
Give a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. Next, we have approval of the CSE, CPSE recommendations. If we have any discussion, it has to go to exec. Hearing none.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. Okay, public comment. I see all familiar faces and public comment. We are going to move the new faculty introduction. That's going to be postponed due to inclement weather. We're going to have that on our December meeting. So we'll meet with faculty in December. Discussion items. The curriculum committee met on November 7th. We'd like to report out on that.
I can report.
All right.
And then Paul and Al can chime in, and Dr. McDonald. So we went over a great deal of data, and so I hope everybody takes the time to look at that. It's included in the link here. A few of the highlights were we went over the Student Information Repository System. So it's basically the New York State assessments for grades 3 through 8. My main takeaways from this were we seem to be, kind of in the middle of the pack of our area as far as testing is concerned. One thing that we can have a little bit of concern with is as the students get older, middle school level primarily, they are taking the option of not taking the tests. And so we need to, as a board, also as a school, kind of educate our students in the community as to what the purpose of these assessments are. They aren't to necessarily count against the students or count against teachers. They are used for funding from the national level. So we just need to take some of those opportunities. I know that for the last 2 years, there's been some disruption with COVID, but now we're getting back on track. And so that's that takeaway from that area. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything to that.
Was there a noticeable fall off in testing over the last 2 years? I mean, across the board or no?
No, and that's what you'll see. The principals will present on this data here in the presentation tool. But the one chart that's on there is multi-year, purposely for that reason. We've heard nationally about the learning loss and the gap coming out of COVID. So we want to look at pre-COVID, multiple years, post-COVID. First year the test was a modified test, and then this year was the first true test. So when you look at it, from my perspective, I was looking for consistency at a minimum. 7th and 8th grade didn't have enough kids take it to really be a valid data source. So K through 6 or 3 through 6 would be the levels we look at. And you'll see, and if you have to zoom it in if you can, but you'll see the chart and just take a look at those levels. And it has green or red depending on how our comparison is to the region, DCMO, and the greater Southern RIC region, which is BT, DCMO, and ONC districts, and then the state. So you'll see kind of how we are within that group. And there's a bit of green, which is nice, especially in ELA. but you'll see, and the principals will walk through that. We just took a good chunk of their presentation, so they're quite happy over there. So that was that one.
And then another topic that we discussed was summer school and the regents. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you to our faculty and administration for stepping up, because if you all remember, there was a situation late in the year where there was transportation and trying to get teachers from the BOCES side. So our teachers stepped up and came in and taught our students, which is, to me, summer school is very important. If there are students that for some reason need that extra, to me it's better to get that in the summer school time than to try and overload them during the school year. Because if they're behind and they continue to be behind, they are not going to be eligible to take BOCES type programs. And overall, I think it was very successful doing that. I think our students learned better from our own teachers, and I think that's something we should look at continuing. Maybe if it's planned, then we'll have more teachers available to do that. But that data, more of that data is also available for you to look at.
And if we would like, we can pause for a second. Well, Mr. Loomis, would you like to highlight a few of the things off of the summer school presentation data-wise? I know you had some things you wanted to comment on this evening.
Sure, I'm going to be going through the presentation now.
We're going to do that for the assessments, not necessarily the summer school.
Okay, so.
But the board has access to the presentation.
Sure, so probably the most important thing to take away from summer school, as Tammy just talked about, if you remember, we were planning on summer school up at BOCES, and then last minute they shifted to go full remote up there, and that's not what we wanted, so we quickly pivoted and asked our teachers, what can we do for an in-person summer school? And like a week and a half, we had every position filled with our teachers except for one. And if we had more time, I'm certain we could have gotten one of our teachers to fill that spot. But one of the biggest pieces about summer school, and it's so important to hold, is our credit recovery for our seniors, or for our students. As Tammy talked about, with the semestering schedule, you have an ideal schedule of 2 core classes during the day, and then you have your electives, other core courses, and that's a balanced schedule between semester 1 and semester 2. If we don't have an opportunity for our students who aren't successful in that type of schedule to make up credits if they're unsuccessful, what ends up happening is they get 3 core classes in a semester. That's 3 80-minute blocks, and that is a very tough schedule for freshmen, sophomores, and even juniors, because the junior year we know is so intense with all the exams that they take. But I think we had 92% of our credits that were attempted to be recovered actually recovered. So and we had 26 students who now don't have to face an overloaded schedule this year and can get caught up, so to speak, and back on track. That is the biggest piece of summer school and why it's so important. So that's probably.
And your intent, as we discussed today, is to move forward
with summer school in person here through our staff.
And it'll be regional. BOCES expanded their summer school COSER. I actually worked on that with Mr. Dewey before I had left, and we can run our in-person as an insight through the summer school COSER. So we will get BOCES aid in the following year on the expenses related to it. So that's a positive, and there won't be transportation, an additional bus running as we do with the summer school students with their summer school. There won't be an additional one. So all positive, extremely positive.
Does that leave opportunity for other districts to come here?
If we so choose, that'll be a decision for us. And if our enrollment is in the sections is low, and depending on what the BOCES arrangement is, whether they come here and how that fee structure works versus them going to the regional site as far as DCMO at Harrell campus, all those details we'll have to look into, but absolutely. And we took in this past year because we paid for it under learning loss. We weren't under any parameters. And we did have a couple of our neighboring districts that helped us out trying to search for staffing. I think it was 2 students from Hancock?
Three students
3 students from Hancock, and they had 1 Delhi student take an assessment.
taking a Regents, right?
So we tried to be regional partners when we can. Okay. Tammy, on to the next one. You want me to hit on the SERS report? Or would you like to
No,
highlight that?
you can go ahead.
Okay. So, as you know, the state data system, our registrar, Gail McGibbon, part of what she works on is keeping our data up to date, and it gets pulled, some of it weekly, some of it monthly, some of it periodically in the year, and it gets pulled to SERS, State Repository. And then they generate probably 100 different reports, I would say, or you and I have looked at that extensively. And within that are different cohort reports. So if you recall, when I talked about graduation rate, the true New York State graduation rate measure is a cohort report. Cohort is determined by the group of students when they enter 9th grade. That's a cohort. And then as they get to 12th grade and go, 4-year outcome, 5-year outcome, 6-year outcome, that's what drives your official graduation rate. So what you have in the folder or in the committee's link is the 2018 total cohort 4-year outcome report. So if you look across this report, if you get a chance to look at it, we had 70 students that were enrolled. We had 61 that graduated. And then it shows the different Regents designations. We had 50 with Regents without advanced, 11 with advanced. We have 7 that are still enrolled, and we have only 2 students out of the entire group that dropped out. But our graduation rate is 87.1%. If you do the math on that, you go, wait a minute, you had 2 students who dropped out. The 7 students who continue are counted against you in the 4-year outcome by New York State. So they're continuing to the age of 21 by law, but it counts against the district, okay? So next year we have a 5-year outcome. If any of them have completed, that number will go up a little bit. 6-year outcome, if they go 4, 5, 6, it'd be the same thing. Now, if you think about it, if a student's 18 years old and they're continuing to do 21, if those 7 are going to 21, whether they're special needs or whatever the case may be, you'll never recoup. So 87.1 might be the best we get, might be 89, maybe 90 over the 5 and the 6. And we'll keep bringing these reports forward. I'm continually looking for data reports to bring forward to the board to inform you and give you information such as this, which I think is very valuable. So I hope you found that helpful. Any questions on it?
And the other part you said, because in New York State, each student has so if somebody enrolls in our district, so they come with a unique student ID that's specific to the state and things like that. So if they enroll for a day even and then drop out, that affects our graduation rate as well. So, and don't enroll in another district. So,
Yep. So there's what's called an exit outcome.
mm-hmm.
Every one of the students who have exited our district has to be assigned an exit outcome by our registrar does it. And there's a number of items that are listed. Depending on what the outcome is, depends on whether or not it's flagged here or whether it moves on to the next district.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting process with the data and the way that they use it. Okay, find this useful, helpful?
For sure.
Yes.
Shall I continue to hunt for other data measures, or am I overloading?
No.
Oh, I
Keep
think it's
hunting. All right, I love it. I love data. You may regret that. I love it.
No, and I think it's important because when you see it, it seems like on its face, well, the numbers are the numbers, but
Yep.
to get down and understand the underlying factors and how it's actually calculated, because it can be kind of misleading to take it on its face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
Okay, we just have Dr. McDonald, principal, to give a presentation on student achievement 3 through 8. We're going to do that later in the agenda, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Facilities Committee will meet on Monday, December 5th at 5 p.m. The Finance Committee is currently working on scheduling a meeting mid-December. And we also would like to recognize our school attorneys, Ferrera and Forenza, tonight. We're joined by Catherine Gavitt, and Wendy will be with us by remote tonight, later.
All right.
Welcome.
So thank you everybody for inviting me down here. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. So I brought, just so you have a little bit more information about our firm, we brought some folders and it just has, maybe you can pass them down each way. It has some information about who we are. Yep, and then I have lots of pens because somebody over-ordered pens in our office. So anytime you want pens, I'm happy to ship you a box. So, all right, so just to give you a little background on our firm, we formed in 1994. We formed exclusively to represent public and private sector employers, and we particularly specialize in education law. So we do maybe about 15% of our work is for public sector or for private sector employers. The rest of it is public sector employers and primarily school districts. And we have just over 20 attorneys right now, all whom specialize in education law. And it's every facet of education law. And I was just talking earlier that what's great is there's so many subsets because education law is so broad that you may have, tax stories and pilots, then you have special ed and you have teacher discipline and student discipline. So there's so many different avenues, and we have multiple people in our firm that each, not only are we all familiar with every aspect, but then really those little niches within education law. Then we also have a practice of assigning at least 2 attorneys for every school district. So we're talking, Wendy has always been your billing attorney. We always have another backup attorney. By way of example, as I was driving down here, another school district called, they couldn't get a hold of the main billing attorney, and they had an emergency with a teacher. And she called me and said, or he called me and said, I can't get a hold of Susan. So that way we always have at least one person available if you have any type of problem. Or if both of us aren't around, we give out all of our cell phone numbers so you could try somebody else too. Our focus has always been firm first when it comes to, we don't consider school districts to be any individual attorneys. We want the firm to help you, and it's our firm's goal to make sure that you're satisfied. So we treat every client as if they're a firm client, and everybody is always available to help you and assist you in anything that you need. We meet every month to talk about new and upcoming educational law issues to make sure that we're on top of what's out there. We send out a newsletter every month on hot topics for educational law issues, and we also have client alerts. So like during the COVID time, we had client alerts coming out quite regularly because the law was constantly changing and evolving, and especially for school districts and our requirements. Now, when we're outside of COVID, we probably only do a client alert maybe once or twice a year, and that's for something where it's, really something important that comes out that you really need to know about right away. And then we also have an annual education law meeting, and then we do what we call breakfast briefings, where 2 to 3 times a year we'll have attorneys talk about relevant issues in maybe 4 locations in New York State where you can come. And then we have town halls on special ed issues, and those are once a month. So that way there's plenty, and the education law meeting, the annual meeting, these breakfast briefings, these are all free. They're newsletters. It's all just an added benefit, so that way you all feel informed when it comes to issues that are coming up. Because even though education law, some of these things have been in place for decades, there's always new issues that are coming out. Recently we've seen a big change in how the commissioner addresses student discipline. So that's a significant issue as a board that you should be thinking about as well. There's a lot, I've been working a lot with smaller districts right now on transgender issues because that's becoming more and more prevalent in the smaller districts. So we're always accessible for all of that. But I don't know, this really talks about, who we are, what we do, and gives you some more subsets, and you can read it at your leisure. I don't know if there's any specific questions that you have for me about the firm, if you want me to go into more about some of our subspecialties that we handle.
Unfortunately, yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
I think the goal was to meet someone directly from Ferrara, to put a face, hear a little bit about the firm with this switch over from Hogan Sosinski, DeWitt to just Ferrara.
Yeah, so now, and we were very fortunate that the 4 attorneys from Hogan Sosinski joined our firm, and so now I feel that it's just even more resources and to not just our clients, but like who were traditionally our clients, but who was traditionally Hogan and Sarzinski's clients as well. So, and then just maybe a little bit of background about myself. My father grew up in Walton, so I have fond memories of this area. The Gavitt, I kept my maiden name. And I've come down here for years and years and years, not as much because of COVID, which I was actually talking to my cousin on the way down, saying, gosh, I need to start coming down now more again, that COVID's over. But, so I'm very familiar with this community, and I've always had a special place in my heart for this community. So when this came up, when I was so excited to hear that Hogan and Sarzinski was representing the school district. I've always, like I said, have a special place in my heart for this place. So.
This is a nice touch too, so when you're calling somebody and hear somebody, a name on the phone, we can put it with a face and the contact information.
Do we have, I didn't even check before they handed this to me, I don't know if we have our 4 new attorneys on here yet. We do. Oh, we do.
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
I should have checked and I didn't. They handed it to me as I was leaving, so, okay, great.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Cam grew a beard since we saw him last.
Yeah.
He has quite a long beard, yeah.
Some good growth there.
Yeah, yeah. That COVID changed everybody, right?
And you'll be sticking around for exec later, correct?
Yeah. Wendy unfortunately couldn't make it in person tonight, but I'm gonna stick around and I'll be here and she's gonna address a couple issues that she has with executive. And my goal is to give the snowplows enough time to clear 206 before I head back over the hills. So,
Well, thank you and welcome for
thank
here.
you. Yeah,
Thank
well, it's
you.
very nice to meet all of you.
Okay, correspondence, we got thank you letters from the Downsville Central School District from Travis Phillip and Daniel. You saw in your packets thanking us for the unique opportunity to be able to join a wrestling team, that they didn't have that opportunity before, and you can tell by their writing that they're very sincerely appreciative of being able to be a part of it. One of them stated that he always wanted to wrestle, was never able to, so giving them this opportunity was precious for them. I'll pass that around if you guys don't have a hard copy of it.
Thank you.
So duly noted, Downsville Central School, thank you. And on to presentations. Principals for New York State assessment results,
Who's going first?
3 through 8.
Molly, go ahead.
I'll go 3 through 8.
So you have the presentation on your screens? Is that-
Yes.
You see it? Okay. So Tammy did a really good job highlighting what we're gonna look at right now. So if you start out, we're looking at grade 3 math proficiency. Mine's in black and white, but I think yours is green. Yes. And it will show you where Walton's proficiency was. So grade 3 was 30% of our students were proficient. That means they got a level 3 or a level 4. And if you just look across at the other regional area districts, like Tammy said, we're kind of in the middle of the pack. Our 3rd grade did pretty well, if you just take a minute to look at that. Okay, go right on to grade 4 on the next page. Grade 4 was a little bit lower, however, so was our neighboring districts. We were at 18% proficiency. Grade 5 also was a little lower, it was 8%, but again, so was across the area. So we're kind of following the trend of our neighboring schools of where we're falling with proficiency in math. Next is 6th grade. You wanna-
And so in the middle school, I'll kind of clump it all together. So our 7th and 8th graders, like Dr. McDonald mentioned, really a good number of them, I don't know if opted out is the preferred term currently, but basically refused to take the test. So our results for 7th and 8th grade aren't really useful. In addition, for 8th grade, we already lost 20 kids who were taking algebra as a Regents level course, so they wouldn't have taken the test anyway. So the results for 7th and 8th particularly aren't really useful. 6th, more kids took it, but you can definitely see that we have some room to grow in that area, and it's something that we recognize, and one of the reasons why we're working to align our math curriculum from elementary all the way through middle school.
If you move on to the Regents exams, you'll see, much like what Mr. Hoover and Ms. Hector talked about, we are kind of in the middle of the pack there. These are good results that we have in front of us. The mastery on the next page is right in line with DCMO BOCES. On the next page, sorry about that. Our geometry Regents, we did not have any mastery, and that was one of our lower scores. And I continually bring this up. Some of our students have been out of practice with Regents exams, how irregular they have been over the last couple of years. Not to say that it's the sole reason why you're seeing the results, but it does play into effect here. Our trig results on Algebra 2, you see that we are kind of on the upper end of that score there, above DCMO and the state for proficiency there. But we do not have any mastery on the trig.
Okay, so that should bring you to the multi-year assessment. So if you scroll down to where it just shows grades 3 through 8, and it will starts with year 13, 14, 14, 15, and goes all the way across to 2021. This is what we really want to look at, because this is where you're going to see your trends. So if you follow third grade across, I'm actually going to start backwards. So at 21, 22, we were at 33% proficiency. 1 year ago, we were at 42%. The year before that was COVID, so there was no tests. And then 18, 19, there was 38%. So if you kind of look there, we're not really dropping, we're just kind of floating along that path. Grade 4, very similar. This year or 2022 was 23% proficiency. Year before that was 39%, which is really good. Then it was COVID, and then it was 27. So we still have this trend, we're kind of bobbling up and down. Grade 5, same thing, 15%, 13%, and then back to 25. If you want to say anything. Okay. Any questions on that trend data, or you want to add anything to that, Mike?
So if you remember, 2021, as I mentioned, was a modified test assessment. So you're not really doing apples to apples. 17, 18, if you look at, say, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, and then 21, 22, that's kind of the fair comparison, if there is any. You're talking about different cohorts of kids when you look at the grade level, and you're looking at assessments that, as we know, change a bit each and every year. So you don't really truly get an apples to apples, but that's really, if it's a similar trend, consistent trend coming out of COVID when everybody's talking about learning loss, I consider that exactly what we had thought when we talked about was, we got back in school quickly, and our teachers stepped up and did their job. They taught, they worked hard, they were stressed because they were performing for our students, and our students learned. And I think that's the consistency as we can see. There's growth to do. We know that. We all do, and we consistently do. And the curriculum adjustments that are being made right now and have been going out for the last couple of years, I think we're going to see different changes as we move forward, especially with the Fastbridge literacy data and what that's showing us for student growth. So I'm hopeful to see what comes, and I know how hard both our administrators and teachers are working, and we can see it. We can see it in the classroom, the change in the learning levels. So we're excited.
We've discussed it in the past where the state assessments, I still think it's important for the students to test just so we can get an idea of where they are, but for the administrators to see the individual growth. And I think that's far outweighs these state tests. If we can see that individual growth and the data that was supplied, showing us that is so much more important, to make sure that we're identifying any student needs quickly and not just waiting for these state tests, assessments.
Agreed. This is a single measure, and the more important measure for us is Fastbridge and teacher formative and summative assessments. That that is the key for our student learning and to know the level of it. The one thing to note is that New York State has grown with their analysis of the unit. So one of the things that these tests give us the ability to do is to mine down to look at the curriculum. So you can take a look at broken down by, say you have 15 units of curriculum, and you can look at it by grade level, you can look at it by year, and you can see, and across the assessment. And if every student got the same curriculum wrong, as a teacher, it allows me to reflect. Because if it's aligned to the standards and it's aligned to the curriculum, you should see, it'll be up and down. Some kids will get it right, some kids will get it wrong. But if it's a flat, it didn't hit this, it's a good moment for reflection. So that's another purpose when we talk about the purpose of it. They didn't have that years ago, as Al can, I'm sure, remember. We didn't have that. It was purely student data and student-oriented data, and over time they've grown, and they've given us some good analysis tools. So it will be very helpful as we engage this new curriculum as time goes by. So, sorry, I get talking about this stuff. I keep going.
That's good.
ELA?
All right, we're moving on. So very similar to the math, third grade proficiency was at 20%. Again, middle of the pack. We do have some schools that are doing a little better, but we're working towards that with the many changes that we have. Fourth grade proficiency, we're at 14%. Again, right in the middle of the pack. And fifth grade is 21% proficient.
For the ELA in the middle school, more students typically take that. We don't lose, a quarter of the eighth graders because they're taking an advanced class, so all the kids are expected to take it anyway. And you can see the results for sixth, seventh, and eighth. We're right at the level as the other districts at BOCES, if not a little bit higher than most of them. So I think this data is more valid because of the number of kids who take it. The ELA is typically first, and the kids at that point, I guess, don't realize that there's nothing we can do if they say no, and they figure that out by the math test, unfortunately.
Moving on to the ELA Regents, you see that this group scored pretty well on this. We had 35% mastery, which is right about where the state ECMO comes in, higher than other schools, a little bit lower than other schools too. ELA is consistently one of the tests that we score well on. Again, you have the irregular Regents idea that played out over the last couple of years, but these are good results that you have in front of you for Regents, for ELA.
So just staying with the tested, not tested, Tammy, you had requested an additional data source that I did link in the curriculum chart, which is a tested, not tested search report. It actually gives you the number by grade level that were tested, number didn't test, and the reason. Did they refuse? Did they opt? Whatever the question is. So I gave that piece of data as well. Just wanted to recognize that for you.
I looked at it.
Yeah.
And lastly, we're at the ELA multi-year trend sheet, which shows very similar to the math. Third grade's at 52%. Back in 18-19, they were 52% and 43%. So again, we're staying pretty steady. Not seeing any huge drops, but we still have a lot of work to do. And
well, look at the green. So this is the chart that gets us a little bit excited. We're further along in our ELA curriculum development. As you know, we're multiple years into letters. CKLA now is in year 2 as far as the curriculum. And the green representing the difference to BOCES, difference to the RIC, and difference to the state. Third grade was 13% higher, 17% higher, and 7% higher. And fourth grade was 3% higher and 5% higher and only 2% below the state. Those are the 2 grade levels that we should see the difference in first, right?
Yeah.
So that's exciting. That's exciting to see. I had to add that in there, sorry.
No, that's good.
And the next chart, I apologize for how, you gotta zoom in. But, so the way it could fit. And that was the Regents level.
And you'll see the,
Well, the colors would be important. to have.
I have.
Black and white one.
So the
I
colors
have.
aren't.
So it's just the same thing here. This is a multi-level with all the, I got chart. Multi-level, all the subjects. But if you look at 21, 22, and you look, historically, we've done well in the high school regions in comparison. Same thing with that, why our graduation rate has been consistently between 83 and 88, 89% over the last 20 years. And you can see the green in most every assessment, where we're higher than the region, higher than the rec, higher than the state, and some significantly. And in some years, and again, it depends on the years, you can look across. Some years with a cohort, a little bit less. Some years, a little bit more. Again, that's that cohort change. Each group of kids has strengths, and each group of kids has less strengths. So, but you can see it when you look at this over time. Any questions on that, on any of that?
So I'm assuming you've had probably conversations on how to entice kids to take these tests, incentivize?
Before COVID, we had a system. In the last year, we actually had testing under normal circumstances before COVID. We had some incentives in place. We did a full-on push to parents to really educate them on the purpose of the test, to make sure they understood that it wasn't tied to the teacher's evaluation, all that kind of stuff. And we had 2 grade levels, we were over 90%, which is the target area, and then the other grade level, we were very close to it. So we're going to re-implement a lot of those things, reach out to the communication with the parents so they know that if the reason they're not doing it is because they're worried about the harm it's doing to our teachers, it's no impact on the teachers and that kind of thing. So, so we do plan to put a lot of those things back in place. So I anticipate we'll have much better numbers this year than we did. We're actually moving towards the state's making us a year or 2 down the road, but we're kind of doing it now, moving to the computer-based testing, which I think for some of the kids that'll make it more exciting, if you will. So that might have a positive impact on things also.
So, and one of the things we talked about is communicating and messaging through our instructional staff as well.
Right.
So making them advocates for the students taking the exams. Additionally, what we're not only doing, and I know it's happening at the early levels when parents are opting their children out because the numbers are fewer. So administration is able to reach out to those parents directly and educate them to kind of change their minds and influence them a little bit more in a positive direction. But when it gets toward those middle school years, we're actually combating some of the more active dissemination of misinformation with regard to why it's beneficial to opt out as opposed to, actually take the exam. So there's form letters that go around to parents and things like that they can just kind of sign. So, and then just the refusal.
I got
so
a lot last year from Montana, the state of Montana. Apparently had a really good
but
form letter to opt kids out.
But you also said there's a certain level of contagion once one kid just turns his exam over or whatever. It's like, well, wait, we don't have to do this.
That's that age, teenagers are a little bit rebellious to begin with, and give them a no consequence type thing, and they're going to take advantage of it.
And the key for us as a school district, now that the ESSA accountability system is being put back into place, we've had a whole harmless since COVID started. It's going back into place. That's where the 90% comes into play. We don't really know exactly what that means if you're flagged and being below it, but we do know that if we're putting in mitigation strategies and effort, that's going to help us if we ever do get flagged. So all these things are very important, incentivize and communicating. So if nothing else, we want to give it a college try and be ready to defend if the federal government comes down and says, why are we giving you all this title money and you can't hit 2 grade levels? Because I don't want to face magnet if that's the case. So we're going to put forth our effort and make sure that they don't try to come and take any of our funding. I got to pull you into the conversation, Meg. All right. That's all. Right? We good? All right. Thank you. Any additions to, or corrections or deletions for the agenda?
No additions to the agenda. I do want to point out to the board that we did switch out the tax collector report, so it is signed now. And that's the only difference.
And we do have one-to-one aid that we hoped to have ready for an addendum tonight, but we're still going through the process with references and checks, but will be needed between now and the next meeting. So there will be an emergency appointment at the next meeting if we're successful. Okay?
Okay, so we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have 11 financial reports, transfer of funds for anything over 5,000, personnel unpaid leave of absence, 2 requests, and personnel appointments, Mandy Lambert for teacher's aide and Sally Alvarez for school monitor. So financial reports, any discussion on the financial reports? I find them very easy to read, Meg, so thank you for putting those together. Wherever credit's due. It seems like a lot to have 11 different reports in that format, but they are concise and they are easy to read. Transferring of funds, any questions or discussion on transfer of funds? Personnel unpaid leave of absence requests. And personnel appointments.
Those are substitutes.
Okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is carried. New business, donations, accepting donations. $300 from Farm Credit East to the Walton FFA chapter. Recommend donation be accepted with appreciation.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. New business, approved tax collectors reports, that is signed. Any discussion on that? Now I'll entertain a motion to approve it. Have a second?
Second, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Me.
Who was it? Oh. And the second?
Charles.
Thank you.
Okay, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And 9C is approve the corrective action plan. Any discussion on that? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. 9D, authorize the use of video conference to conduct board meetings. This went through our public review process last time, right? So we can improve it. Any discussion on that? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And personnel appointments, Danny Hodges to assistant building maintenance mechanic and Mandy Lambert to part-time school monitor.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And policy update. Policy review.
Okay, just 4 policies that we can review as we do in the course of over the course of the year. 3120, duties of a superintendent. 4850, animals in the school. That's a good one. 5100, student attendance. 8414.5, alcohol and drug testing of drivers. So just as you have an opportunity to take a look at those, please do.
Thank you, Paul. And we have a second reading for adoption of policy 5205. Mr. Wood again.
Policy 5205, eligibility for co-curricular and extracurricular activities, amendment, second reading.
You have a motion to approve that? You have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is adopted. And one policy for first reading.
That's 2325, video conferencing of board meetings, first reading.
We'll take action on that next meeting.
Make a motion to accept that as our first reading.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And we're up to administrative remarks.
Got it, which order?
Nope, not to me.
Left to right.
I'll go first. I'll start by taking a moment to recognize the 19 students we have going into either National Honor Society here at Walton or the National Technical Honor Society up at BOCES. That is a huge group, and a huge congratulations to those students. The BOCES induction is actually this Thursday, but that is one of the largest groups that I remember in a long time, and very happy that we have these programs to recognize our students.
Ditto.
That's just a reflection is not everything is based on a state assessment test.
You bet. Absolutely.
Get some good character development in those.
Yep.
We just wanted to give a shout out or a thank you to the UHS hospital here. Our third grades went over to do a teddy bear clinic, and the kids loved it. They got to see each department. They had their bears there. They were putting the cups on there to check the heartbeat. They just really had a blast. So I just wanted to say thank you to them, and also remind you tomorrow is our second grade feast if you're coming over to support us and do some serving. We are going to wear some autumn orange colors, so keep that in mind.
Do you think that the third grade will be a traditional type thing?
So
For that age level, or?
usually second grade goes, but
Oh,
because
okay.
of COVID, third grade didn't get to go. So they invited third grade now, and then second grade's going to go in the spring. And then every year, second grade will go.
Nice.
Tomorrow, who's planning on attending from the board? I know I'm going to try to be there to serve.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Oh.
Excellent. So
Perfect.
we have
Yeah,
four hands to help.
Nice.
Thank you.
Can we pick what we serve?
You said you want turkey.
Yeah, you warned me about that. I will do that.
That's better, I told you. I
And we
was
do-
ran out last year, so.
Yeah.
We definitely, I definitely appreciate the pictures of all that stuff. It brings faces to us. With these reports, I really appreciate that.
You just want something that the kids don't pass up. I
not
got the
cupcake
vegetables
wars.
last year.
He warned me that, the turkey, you gotta be careful of how much you hand out, because you go through trays pretty quick, so we'll see if we can handle that.
I got corrected midway through, which was good, because
Don't wanna run out.
After Pilgrims when they had turkey. The music on the Delaware brought in I guess an acoustic group or a duet. duo.
Acoustic Eidolon.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that second word, so I wasn't even gonna try it either.
so you can bail off us.
That's why you're these policies for us.
That's right, absolutely. The most enjoyable part of every board meeting is hearing.
Yeah, man, it's getting heavy over here.
So I went down when they met with they did a performance at the elementary school first, and came to me, do a workshop with our high school chorus and the middle school orchestra. And it was really cool to see the kids get to interact and see that, whether you become a professional musician or make a living out of it, or just continue to play beyond, your high school years, that there's things out there that you can be a part of. And the kids really enjoyed it, and I thought they were pretty fantastic also. The middle school did our first activity night, which is the dodgeball tournament every year is always a hit. You have the kids who think they're professional dodgeball players and go out there and quickly realize that they might not be, that they might be have a different career.
I do want to, the activity night, I was there for the PTSA. We sell refreshments, and I just wanted to acknowledge that what a great event that was, how polite, and just hats off to our middle school children. It was great to see them interacting, and it was just such a positive experience, so.
And it's one of the first ones, actually the second one I think we've had that they didn't have to wear masks.
So it was great to have them there.
Back
Do they
to
still get
whatever
the
normal
matching
middle school
shirts?
is. What's that?
Did the team still do the matching shirts?
None of them had the matching shirts this
No?
time. I don't know if they planned it out well enough in advance to do that, but there was a couple of years where they had some interesting shirts, including one year that they had interesting shirts that they were required by me to turn inside out. Moving on. So three of, actually all the teams that we have all the results for the fall season were scholar athlete teams. So that's field hockey, volleyball, and football. The boys and girls soccer, because Downsville has a 10-week quarter. Actually tomorrow their grades will be finalized, and then I'll be able to determine whether or not the teams made it, which would, it would be nice if all 5 of our teams in the fall made it.
So unfair question for you on that topic. Taking it that we are in the running to be there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to put the
No, that's,
cart before the horse, but I think we have a pretty good chance of those. So. It's the way they do it makes it a challenge. They actually, the larger teams, in a way, are almost punished because 75% of the roster. So for some of our teams where we don't need basketball, for example, that's 7 or 8 kids. Where for football, I don't want to make excuses for my kids I coach. One of the reasons why we have a tough time is because like 22 of them have to have an average above 90 and together. So we could have some in the 80s as long as it's 90s together. So when you're trying to get 22 kids as opposed to 7, it's just more challenging.
It's a great start. I think last year we had, 11 or 14?
Yeah.
You can remember those numbers, so we're well on our way to
And
hopefully
at
match
least
that.
one of those teams made it this year that didn't last year. I'm not going to single them out, but
awesome.
the other thing I wanted to just mention briefly is for our forms. So for one of the big pieces of our Meet the Coaches nights, really, it's become kind of a permission slip collecting night more than anything else. Unfortunately, attendance isn't great, and it's working really well to make sure the kids have all their paperwork in. We're actually moving to a system called Final Forms that Mr. Robinson and I have been working with the company. We're going to start off this spring just for the athletic forms, the permission forms, the health history, emergency contact, all that kind of stuff. And from there, we can actually start using a lot of the other forms that I know Mr. Robinson has a heck of a time getting kids to bring back in as far as the acceptable use policies for technology and all that kind of stuff. So we're pretty excited about this, that it's going to take a lot of manpower and time out of the equation because parents will be able to just do it, on their phone or whatever. It allows our coaches to communicate out instantly, so they can set it up that as they're taking attendance at practice, it can automatically send an email to, a parent saying to let them know their kid's not at practice. So a lot of times we'll find out after the fact that, I thought my kid was at practice. He wasn't. He was out doing something else. So that's a big piece of it. And along with that, our nurses will be able to just click something on there if they get a note that says so-and-so has a sprained ankle and they're out of sports for 2 weeks or whatever. They can just click it and it will be read on the app for the coaches. So I think it's going to make a big impact as far as the time we spend collecting those things and doing all the paperwork, but also the communication piece is going to be a big part of it also.
Will accommodations be made for those that might not have internet access or computers?
Yeah, we'll have to, because we know that from our buildings, we know that not all
Right.
parents know.
Yeah, the forms can still be made available and be done hard copy as needed. This system, we're using it not just for athletics, but broader for any of the annual forms and annual obligation forms that parents need to do, so that we can, any of them that can, we can streamline it the most we can. We laughed and we talk about this a lot, that, elementary, if anybody remembers, and some of you are currently still in the middle of it, night before school or 2 days before school, your hand gets tired with all the forms and everything you're filling out.
So anything we can do to streamline that, we are trying to, not necessarily putting it all electronic, but looking at different ways to streamline and obtain information. Maybe verification versus redo type of situation. So this is one piece of that. Okay, me?
Yes, sir.
I only have one item. I had mentioned in the Friday communication about the reassessment and change of direction with the O&M 5-year equipment plan. The fact that our truck that we ordered last fall did not come through and they canceled our order. So we're not going to get a truck for this winter. The earliest we would get a truck will be next summer. And that's if we change from Ford to Dodge, which we will be looking at. So we reevaluated our 5-year equipment plan, and we're looking at a piece of equipment, a sub-tractor named Zentrac, to allow us to properly handle this new footprint and properly handle our slopes and our sidewalks. So we're looking at doing that switch out this year. The purchase, we'll be able to have it within a month if we make the decision to make the move in the purchase. No change in allocation, it's just be, instead of buying a truck that we can't get, we'll be buying this piece of equipment and then reshuffling the needs in the 5-year equipment plan. We had in there that next year we'd be looking at a Ferris commercial mower. This mowing capacity that this unit will have will now extend the life of that for another, I think, 5 years or something of that nature. So we're constantly reevaluating those large equipment purchases. So
Are you still looking to purchase a truck next summer?
we'll be looking for commitment by the board for a truck to replace that dump truck, 2005 dump truck. Same thing we did last year. We'll have to make a commitment by January, but we will be going with Dodge instead of Ford, which is something that Kevin had shared with us, that when it comes to plow trucks and the work that he's done, it seems like that's a better model to go with, and it definitely is a cheaper model as far as reduction of cost, and we can get it as early as probably July, where Ford, which is the brand that we were looking at last year, there's no guarantee that they're not going to cancel the production again. So we're looking at changing direction that way. But yes, that's if the board agrees in the development process and if the budget is passed. Any other questions or discussion on that?
What did you call that piece of equipment?
It's called a Zentrac. It's a number of schools have it in the region. Bosse's had it when I was there. It's a multi-purpose. You can sand, you can plow, you can mow, you can mow slope. It actually has 4 sets of dual tires that you can put on it or take off of it. Can mow up to slope angles with it. Delhi, the college and the school have multiple units of these because of the slopes that they have in comparison to a number of us. It's quite a piece of a unit. You can put a heated cab on it, you can sand with it, you can brush with it, which our main intent right away is to have the plow, to have the brush, and have the ability to salt. So that will be the unit that's on our new sidewalks. It won't be a heavy piece of equipment, and it certainly won't be a truck ever on those new sidewalks. No, that's the one.
Is
That's
this
all.
as large, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Is this as large as the tractor we just purchased?
No.
Okay.
No, small platform.
Everything's front mounted on that, correct?
It's Ventrac, right?
Ventrac, yeah, sorry, not Zentrac, Ventrac.
I think the model was in the Friday letter.
So,
Yeah.
yes, it's yeah, that's what I.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, we'll move forward.
Okay. We do have a need for an executive session tonight, so I'll ask in advance who will make the motion to return to general session and adjourn, because I don't believe we're going to take any
I'll
action
make
after.
that motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and a motion to go into exec, and we're going to invite Principal Loomis in and Miss Gavin, and that's it. For exec. Need a motion to do that?
And Wendy will be
Motion.
calling in.
And Wendy will be telecounting you. Yep. Motion second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are in exec.